I'd like to commend Sinn Féin in relation to this very important motion. And I was at the Health Committee last week in terms of the situation in relation to cancer services, and the Irish Cancer Society gave a very sombre view of cancer services in Ireland. And I mean, there's a lot to be proud of in relation to our public health system, but there's a lot to be concerned about in our system that, you know, treats people that have cancer. And it's, you know, cancer is a very prevalent condition. 1 in 2 of us will have the condition. So, you know, that's to say like 70, 80 TDs in here, that makes up the composition that all will possibly have cancer. And that's a very kind of sombering kind of thought. And obviously cancer we will meet cancer through our kind of relatives and our loved ones. So it's very, very prevalent. And obviously we're living longer, and that's a great thing. But we need that intervention at the right time, and that's very, very important. I think the National Cancer Strategy, Minister, it's a great concept, but it has certainly stalled in recent times, particularly since 2017. And again, the Irish Cancer Society critiqued where, you know, it is in some ways stalled, and in some ways gone backwards. And that's very, very worrying in terms of you know, the prevalence of cancer and the intervention. And when people get in timely intervention, the outcomes are extremely, extremely good. There's also kind of the inequalities in our health system, where you have people that are in the private health system will have better access to screening, better access to diagnosis, and also better kind of access to new medicines. And that's a kind of, I think that's a stain on our society, where there's a kind of, I suppose, a divide between public and private in relation to, you know, whether you live or not live. And that's what it really comes down to. And that's I think that's a blight really on our health system in relation to access. There's also the usual social determinants in relation to kind of health inequality, wealth inequality, and kind of lifestyle factors. And these are huge kind of factors in terms of who gets cancer, who doesn't get cancer, and that can play a huge role in terms of the prevalence of cancer. Minister, I wanted to raise an issue which I know the Minister's gone, and I raised this at the Health Committee last week, and I think it's very important in that, I mean, obviously cancer is a very kind of broad spectrum in terms of its diagnosis. But in Ireland we have a breast screening kind of programme that starts from the age of 50 to the age of 69. And obviously in recent years that's gone from 65 to 69, and that's a good thing. But I think there's a school of thought out there that screening should begin before 50. So in some European countries, this screening starts at 40. In some European countries, it starts at 45. Because 23% of all breast cancers were diagnosed for women under the age of 40. And I think we should be kind of thinking about expanding this programme for those under 50. And we've seen in Sweden, a really good example in Sweden, where they brought down the screening programme to the age of 40, and the age of mortality and diagnosis went down by a quarter. So I think there's a lot of credibility in terms of the screening programme, in particular around breast cancer. I think that's very important. Minister, just my final kind of contributions in terms of, and I know other deputies have stipulated this, is in terms of some of the equipment that, you know, has been obviously bought at great cost, is not being used in particular hospitals around the state. I mean, that's pretty unbelievable, you know, where we have very advanced medical equipment not being used. And obviously the reason why it's not being used is because there's people not being recruited or retained for all factors to use these particular equipment. And that is really damning, to say the least, that equipment that could be used and should be used is not being used, and that's trying to save people in the public health system. And I think that's a really bad indictment, Minister. So it's important, Minister, that the National Cancer Strategy, is reviewed again, and it needs kind of new impetus in terms of what actually the National Cancer Strategy do. It's a great concept. Don't get me wrong, but it needs a review and it needs to be updated. And I actually want to wish the Minister well in his new role.